On Wednesday, the Bergen Record published documents proving top officials to Governor Christie instigated the closure of several access lanes on the George Washington Bridge in September near the town of Fort Lee in order to punish that town's mayor for not endorsing Christie's reelection. The lane closures turned the town into a virtual parking lot for 4 days and delayed emergency workers trying to respond to calls, including one involving an unconscious 91-year-old woman who later died. In one email, Christie's deputy chief of staff, Bridget Ann Kelly, wrote, quote, "Time for some traffic problems in Fort Lee." The emails were written to David Wildstein, a high school friend of the governor who worked at the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, which runs the bridge. He responded, quote, "Got it." Prior to his resignation in December, Wildstein was the Port Authority's director of interstate capital projects.
Later text messages mock concerns that school buses filled with students were stuck in gridlock on the first day of school. One unidentified person wrote to Wildstein, "I feel badly about the kids, I guess." Wildstein wrote, quote, "They're the children of Buono voters," referring to Mr. Christie's opponent for governor, Barbara Buono. Some of the texts about the plan were sent while Kelly was in line to pay respects at a wake. In other text messages, one of Christie's associates and emails refers to the mayor of Fort Lee, Mark Sokolic, as, quote, "this little Serbian." In fact, he is of Croatian descent. The scandal could hurt Christie's chances of running for president in 2016. Until now, Christie's administration insisted the lane closures were part of a traffic study initiated by the Port Authority. Christie responded to the new revelations in a statement on Wednesday saying, quote, "What I've seen today for the first time is unacceptable. I'm outraged and deeply saddened that not only was I misled by a member of my staff, but this completely inappropriate and unsanctioned conduct was made without my knowledge." Governor Christie also canceled his only scheduled appearance on Wednesday.
I'm sorry, Mr. Baroni. I heard you the first 3 times that you talked about the issue of whether or not there should be lanes, but that's not what this hearing is about. This hearing is about the lack of communication and the poor conduct of the Port Authority, and you are here trying to cover that up. What I would like to know is whether or not you have an email trail. You're trying to tell us that this a study that had a major disruption on your major bridge has no paper trail, that there is not a single email that explains how this was done? That defies all logic, and nobody in this room believes that.
Juan, this is quite a scandal that's brewing, all starting with a traffic jam on the George Washington Bridge.
Yes, and I think it's going to continue for quite some time because obviously there are more hearings coming. I think the governor has now announced he's going to have a press conference today. The reality is that Christie's in a position where, on the one hand, if he didn't know that his own top staff were involved in this, that's a problem. And if he did know, it will become an even bigger scandal, just as he's preparing now, really, to thrust himself into the national picture as a presidential candidate.
I mean, scandal racks a lot of politics in New Jersey, but all these emails and texts show that this goes right into the governor's office. And in all of these texts that we were just reading and emails, there are names that have been actually redacted, and it's unclear who redacted these names.
Right. Well, in the FOIL request, obviously, that the Bergen Record had, it was a decision of someone in the administration, and I guess they could have appealed that as well, the redaction of the names, but they felt that it was important to get the information out at this time. And of course, the George Washington Bridge is a huge.
It's the most trafficked bridge in the world, it's believed.
And millions of people use it, especially commuters on a daily basis, and folks know that there are traffic jams on the George Washington Bridge most of the time anyway, but to tie up a major town in New Jersey this way and to create all these problems. Now the mayor now has demanded a reimbursement from the state and an apology, but he's demanded reimbursement for the public safety people that had to work so much overtime during those 4 days. So this is going to continue as an issue in not only New Jersey politics but in national politics now for several days, I think, if not weeks.
Now let's remember remember that what was said at the time is there was some kind of traffic study going on, but no emergency personnel, no police, no one was told about this in Fort Lee. And when it was complete, when people kept continually questioning, it turned out there was no such traffic jam. And then you have this situation that there was no such study. Then you have the situation where people who were sick, people who were ill, like the 91-year-old woman who later died, emergency workers were seriously delayed in getting to them.
The other problem is that Christie, who is known as a hands-on manager, as someone who pays attention to details, and also as someone who is not reticent to go after his political enemies. This is why I think that there's so much of a sense that it's almost beyond belief that the governor would not have some knowledge if it was at the level of his inner staff. So we'll see what happens, but I think it's definitely a continuing story now.